welcome to Pupil versus Politician at Mearns Castle High School. Our pupil Stephanie Ross debating today against our guest speaker Jim Murphy, MP and Shadow Defence Secretary. Today we will be exploring the issue of nuclear weapons. The topic being, this House believes that all states should be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. I would like to introduce the proposition Stephanie Ross to begin the debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to address 2 points this evening, the first being sovereignty and the second being deterrence. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, every country has the right to defend itself. And by recognising the existence of a nation, we recognise its right to protect itself by whatever means necessary. If this is nuclear means, then that's okay. The status quo is not fair, with only 9 countries being allowed to develop nuclear weapons, and 3 of them going against the Non-Proliferation Treaty and developing them without actually being allowed to. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, the point of deterrence. When nuclear weapons are involved, war becomes a lot less likely, because countries have to weigh up whether the loss that they are going to get from a war is worth the gain that they were going to receive. And when every country has nuclear weapons, the loss always outweighs the gain, and therefore making war a much lesser possibility. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I beg you to propose the motion.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm now going to ask the opposition, Jim Murphy, to challenge Stephanie's argument.
Thank you, Johnny. The world's a dangerous and fragile place. Conflicts are far too common across borders and within countries. Nuclear weapons are the most dangerous thing ever created by humankind, and we should be working together to make sure those 9 countries reduce the number of nuclear weapons. To give the chance to every country the opportunity to develop these weapons of mass destruction makes the world more dangerous, not more safe. So instead of giving every country across the world that chance, let's work together to cut nuclear arsenal right down to 0 if we possibly can. To allow, as Stephanie's suggesting, every country to have nuclear weapons would ensure these medium-range and small conflicts that exist across borders could develop very quickly into mass-scale nuclear war embroiling the whole world. That's the last thing we need, it's the last thing we want, and I would urge you to reject the proposition.
Thank you, Jim. I'm now going to put the debate onto the floor, so does anyone have any points?
We exist in a nuclear world where almost every country can develop nuclear weapons, so surely logic dictates that all countries should be allowed to.
Surely anyway disarmament is impossible with this vast quantity of technology, and we are entitled to some sort of global security.
If every country is allowed the possibility of making nuclear weapons, there's a strong possibility that they can fall into the hands of the wrong people, such as unstable dictators.
Here.
Nuclear arms have been proven to prevent conflict. Why shouldn't all states have access to security?
Here we go.
Isn't the research and ingenuity encouraged through the production of nuclear weapons also an important factor to consider?
Weapons are for attacking, not for defence.
Max.
Surely if we prohibit the production of nuclear weapons, it will just encourage unstable dictatorships to develop them underground on the black market.
Here.
Surely the opposition should consider how much it costs to maintain a nuclear weapon rather than just developing it. This money could be better spent on education and healthcare.
Emily.
I think the proposition are absurd to believe that nuclear weapons are the do-all and end-all for defence mechanisms.
What would happen if, after a country's developed nuclear weapons, governance changes hands to a military group as is happening in Syria just now?
Here.
Surely the idea of power and leadership is more than the power of weapons.
Jim Murphy, your reply?
Think of all the conflicts in recent years, and think of the fact that if all these countries had nuclear weapons, the losing side in that war would be guaranteed the opportunity to fire a nuclear weapon at their opponent, causing massive destruction and embroiling the whole world. That's the last thing we need.
Stephanie, your reply?
We think that ultimately global zero is an impossibility, ladies and gentlemen, and therefore if some countries have nuclear weapons, then all should have the right to have the same, because otherwise you will end up with a much worse and very unstable global society, and that's why you must propose this motion.
Thank you, debaters. I would like to ask anyone who believes the motion is carried to raise their hands. And is there anyone who believes the motion is denied? Well, after that brilliant debate, it's obvious that the motion has been carried. Bye from us at Mearns Castle High School. Goodbye and good night.